Nehemiah chapter 8 from verse 1. In October, when the Israelites had settled in their towns, all the peoples assembled with a unified purpose at the square just inside the water gate. They asked Ezra the scribe to bring out the book of the law of Moses, which the Lord had given to Israel to obey. So on October the 8th, Ezra the high priest brought the book of the law before the assembly, which included the men and women and all the children old enough to understand. He faced the square just inside the water gate from early morning till noon and read aloud to everyone who could understand. All the people who listened closely to the book of the law, all the people listened closely to the book of the law. Listen, I don't know whether you ever get amazed, but I'm amazed at how meticulous, at how detailed, at how careful God is to record every single detail. You know, the time of Ezra and Nehemiah in the history of Israel represents a time when people had forgotten about God. People had abandoned worshiping God. People had gone their own ways. And in Ezra chapter 6, the Bible says this, that King Darius ordered, King Darius is a Babylonian king, by the way, ordered that a search be made in the Babylonian archives, which were stored in the treasury, that it was at the fortress of Akatama in the province of Media that a scroll was found. Yeah? So here is even a heathen king, a king of Babylon, trying to find a trace of the semblance of these people who have come to exile, who have been carried into captivity and have lost their identity in exile, lost their way in exile, and become so much like the Babylonians that even the Babylonian king Darius is wondering, who are these people? And the king says, go and search among the archives. I want to find out about their culture and their history. That's how much the people of God had lost their identity. And my fear, people of God, is that in the day and age we live in, if we do not take time, our children will lose their identity, the fear of God, and the culture in which we were brought up in, to the extent where people would have to dig archives to know what it is to be a Christian. Oh, hello, somebody. Are you with me? That here is a situation, a circumstance, and a people who says, what is Christianity all about? We have lost any notion or trace of what it means to be a Christian. And so the king orders, search into the archives. Let's find out what history are behind this people group. Are you with me, somebody? But we come and we read in Nehemiah chapter 8, in October, the Bible says, verse 2, on October the 8th, heaven had not lost touch. Even though people had lost touch with God, God was keeping a record to the point where he could say the date and the time. Oh, hello. That God has not forgotten, even though we have forgotten him. I said to a friend once, he said to me, trust me, he's now one of the most pleasant, most studious, most passionate people of God. At the time, he was in a place where he found himself questioning the way of Christianity. And when I approached him, he said to me, "Don't come and preach to me. I know you're one of those people, hypocrites," he said, "who go about carrying the Bible. I don't want to hear any preaching." And at the time, the Spirit of God said to me, "Talk to him about his daughter." And I said to him, "This little girl running around, who is she? Is she your daughter?" And he said, "Yeah." "What is her name?" And he said, "Laura." And I said, "If Laura grows up," "How old is she?" He said, 4 or 5, you know. And I said, "If Laura grows up into a young woman, the daughter is mixed race, and decides, I want to go and find out about my mother's people. Actually, I don't want to identify with you, African man. I want to identify with my mother who is European, and I would have nothing to do with you as a dad. I don't want you to contact me or talk to me ever." And I said, "Would it change the way you feel about her?" He said, "No, she's my daughter. I will always love her." And I smiled and I said, "That's the way it is with God. You know, you are his son. You may decide, I don't want to talk to God. I don't want to talk about God. I actually don't want to know. But it hasn't changed the way God feels about you, because you are his son the same way." And that started the journey and the beginning of a journey that Sean then went on and eventually became baptized. And as I said, today he's one of the most passionate people that talk about God. And I've seen him grow in leaps and bounds. But here, the point I'm making, people of God, is that we are at a juncture like the Israelites were, where we face the possibility of losing the identity of who we are as Christians. And our children lose the identity of the culture they were brought up in, or we were brought up in. And like the Israelites of the time, it may take a foreign king to remind Israel, people of God, that you are not meant to be behaving this way. King Darius said, "Go search the archives for me. I want to know about these people. What is their background? What is their history? And let's learn. History is trying to repeat itself. But the church, the people of God, has not learned. We risk losing our identity. The Bible says in Revelations chapter 12, verse 7, "He who have ears, let him hear what the Spirit is saying." A word to the wise is enough. Let's worship.